Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the FX-Audio DS07, and this is the FX-Audio L07, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Hifi College for sending over the FX-Audio DS07 and the L07 for review. To greatly appreciate it. Hifi College, you rock. Alright, so the FX-Audio DS07. This is a DAC only. It'll set you back $200 from your bank account. And it has a Sabre ES9068A DAC chip, along with a bunch of other things inside it that I'll put a link to down below or somewhere on the screen. And then the L07. This is a speaker amp, and it will set you back $150 from your bank account. And it has 100 watts per channel at 8 ohms and 200 watts per channel at 4 ohms. So, why are you reviewing both of these together? Well, because I think that they pair very well together, especially with a small desktop setup like I have here in my office. So let's start with the DS07. Coming at $200. It's a very small little device and doesn't take up a whole lot of space. It's tall and skinny, and it's fairly well built. All aluminum case. You get little rubber feet here on the bottom, and then everything is compact but well laid out. You have a big huge knob here on the front, which works as a variable output control. And then also, if you click it, it'll mute your music, and if you hold it in, it'll change in your menu screen. You have this very, very little screen here on the front. It's kind of hard to look at, but you can change the dimming and the brightness and that kind of things in the menu, make it a little bit easier to read. It gives you the majority of information that you need, like your file bit rates, and also where your volume is and what you're outputting to, and also what your source is. The FX-Audio DS07 can do 32.768 and DSD 512, and it has Bluetooth 5.0. And as mentioned, the DAC chip is a ES9068A. On the back side here, you have your outputs, which are XLR and RCA, and then your inputs are Bluetooth, USB, coax, and optical. And then you have your power supply in with a master switch on off. Overall, it's very well laid out, and it's nice and lightweight, doesn't take up much space. Only wish I had a little bit bigger of a screen. You also do get a remote control that's fully functional. And then the L07. You have your volume knob, and you have a little switch here which will change between your outputs of balanced and single-ended. And there's a light that'll power up to say, hey, I'm on. And it's nice and red. It's a little bit on the duller side, so it doesn't like blind you with a piercing white. Thank you very much, FX-Audio, for using red. Is much appreciated. On the back side, you have your binding posts, which are nice and snug right now. And then you have your inputs of XLR and RCA. And then there's this little switch right here, which you can go in stereo mode, or if you want to use them in mono mode, bridged, you make that selector switch. Make sure that you have it on stereo if you're not using it in bridge mode, because it will sound really strange. I made that mistake. And then you also have your power supply input and your master switch. So, how do they sound? The DS07 is a slightly warm, slightly fun and engaging type of presentation that for $200 is pretty competent. I found that the bass has nice impact and slam, extends nicely in sub bass. You don't get a ton of expression there in the sub bass regions, but there's enough to give you a little bit when called upon in the tracks. The more the impact in the punch is in the mid bass and upper bass regions, but it's well controlled. And then the tone and timbre of the bass is nice. Going into the mids have a nice presence to them while staying balanced and even with the bass. And overall, it has enough of a presentation to be engaging and to keep everything flowing in the music and not to be too domineering or too set back and lackadaisical. Tone and timbre, like the bass, is very well done. And then going into the treble extends nicely, and there's enough of a presence there to space things out and to keep the energy going with nice sparkle. But like the mids and the bass, it's very even keeled and has nice balance to it, and it's very cohesive. At times it can sound a little bit too soft and warm, and then at others you get just enough. So it kind of walks that line without being boring, but without being super expressive either. I found that the tone and timbre is very accurate. So overall, the bass, the mids, and the treble of the DS07 sound accurate and do a pleasant job of giving you an emotional connection to the music, even though it is somewhat on the more warm side and a little bit leaning laid back. The soundstage of the DS07 is nice. It expresses nice and wide, and it has decent depth and layering, stays fairly well controlled, and does a good job with imaging. You can place things as they go across, and also it's pretty specific where they are. It's not the most pinpoint and exacting of a DAC, but you can tell it's in this neighborhood right here and right here. Things are in front and behind each other, and they're moving around. Tone and timbre is pretty close to the natural. You can definitely differentiate between instruments and vocalists, and things sound to be reproducing their real world instruments and vocalists in the proper way, and things sound true. And then detail retrieval and resolution is good, especially for a $200 DAC. I found that I'm not missing anything, but I'm not really exploring new things either. Resolution is okay. It's a little bit on the softer presentation wise. I do wish I had a little bit more bite, a little bit more crispness, and a little bit more edge to things, but it does a good, competent job, and you're not going to be disappointed. As far as connecting to other external amplifiers and being used in that way, the DS07 is portrayed very well, and you can control your output with its variable volume knob. L07. Now the L07 is a speaker amp only, and it is balanced and single-ended inputs. And I found that this speaker amp has plenty of power to power any of the speakers that I used, which were the Audiophile D310s and the Martin Logan Motion 15s. I found that the volume knob barely had to be pushed for the setting that I have here in the office. I rarely ever got past about that on the volume knob. If you got to noon, they were extremely loud. And then going even louder, it got higher, it became unbearable. So this has plenty of power for the speakers that I used it with, and I was rather impressed. It does distort a little bit as you get higher up in the volumes, especially past the 1 o'clock range, but that could also be it's just overpowering my speakers. Couple things to note. I found that the amp does relay and reproduce exactly what the DACs are giving it. So if it's a warmer source, you're going to have a little bit of a warmer sound. And if it's a colder source, it's going to reveal that. But the L07 is a very clean and crisp analytical leaning, almost cold, brittle sound at times. And it can be a little too clean and a little too cold, especially with different sources. So do be careful of that, of what you pair it with when it comes to speakers and a DAC. But overall, the L07 is phenomenal. I have totally enjoyed having it here in the office listening to music. In comparison to the other DACs, the DS07, when compared to the Fiio K11, is a little bit on the warmer side and a little bit more laid back. The K11 is more neutral leaning and a little bit more analytical and has a little bit more air and space. Also, the K11 seems to have a little bit more details and a little bit better resolving. When I compared it to the Aune X1S GT, the Aune X1S GT was similar in its warmth, but was better in its details and resolution. And then everything else that I have currently really is way more expensive and isn't a fair comparison. So we'll keep it there with those two to compare it to. If you have any questions regarding other DACs and how the DS07 compares, please ask it down in the comments below. And then the L07. Now I don't have any pure speaker amps on hand to compare it to, but thinking back to the Fosi Audios that I have reviewed recently on the channel, the Fosi Audios have a little bit more of a cleaner but natural presentation. They have a little bit more of a warmth, a little bit more body to things, and they aren't quite as cold, brittle. And that goes with the V3 and the ZA3. Both of those have a little bit more of a slight warmth and tint to them and a little bit more natural, whereas the L07 leans more cold, analytical, and just a little bit on the brittle side at times, especially depending on what you pair it with. So FX-Audio, I like both of these, and I'm rather impressed, especially for its price point coming at $200 and $150. So for $350, you're getting a very nice, small, complete speaker setup with a DAC and speaker amp that can pretty much power anything. At 4 ohms, it's going to do 200 watts, and at 8 ohms, it's going to be 100 watts per channel. So you got a lot of power to play with. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Somewhere on the screen, all kinds of things to check out. If you haven't already, please check those off and subscribe to the channel, and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video. Check out all the other links down below. There's all kinds of information, gear recommendations, music recommendations, gear rankings, and how you can contact channel, follow the channel, and support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, if you're interested in supporting the channel, there's various ways that you can do that with one-time gifts through PayPal, Venmo, or YouTube, or you can do monthly subscriptions with Patreon and YouTube memberships. And there you can get early access to videos and access to my private Discord server if you want. Just ask. And I want to thank all of my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for all that you provide to the channel. It's much appreciated. Check out all those links down below. Give a thumbs up, give a thumbs down, do all that kind of other stuff. And don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.